What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another edition here on sportsbet.io. Going over the weekly NFL betting slate, we focus on mainly the night games and throw maybe a few more in there every week, maybe at least one or two. I know I have a good question for Lou this week, but welcome everyone once again. My name is Chris Farley. You can follow me at FarleyBets on Twitter, and I am joined as always by Lou Finicaro. You can find him at Gamblou on Twitter. That's GAMBLOU, and also at gamblou.com. Okay, Lou, let's get to this one in week 3 because we have some very interesting games once again, and we start Thursday Night Football with the New England Patriots traveling to the Meadowlands to face the New York Jets. Jets got off the schneid, I guess. It wasn't very pretty, Lou, but they got a win there at Tennessee. And the Patriots, in my opinion, they're kind of impressing up until this point, right? They're playing hard. They're keeping games close, brought Seattle into overtime. The Jets are 6.5-point favorites. This line opened at 7, down to 6.5, and looks pretty stable there. And the total's at 37.5. Lou, is this another example of maybe a tough team to take in the Patriots at plus 6.5, especially with all the hype coming in on the Jets this season? But is that the side that you'd be looking at?
Well, I think it's the more difficult side to look at. Most people want, the public tend to want to take the favorite, and the home team on a Thursday night in a short week. That bodes poorly for the team traveling. Now, this is a division game. These teams know each other, so preparation is minimized because they don't really need much prep. They've hated on each other for decades. That said, I do an awful lot of situational study of the schedules during July. That's what I do in July. And my study tells me that this is the third game in 10 days for the Jets. And that makes it a real tough spot for them. And while there's no real market moves on numbers or anything here, this is an absolute play on New England based on the situation for the Jets, who won a big game, but they went to San Fran, then had to go to Tennessee to do it, now come home for a short week for their home opener in a division game that looks like both of these teams with defense and running game want to play to 3 points anyway. I think it's Patriots or pass.
Yeah, I love what you said there. I mean, the Jets starting off the season with 2 road games too, right? So pretty crazy schedule right out. Now they get to go back home after a win. Almost feels like a little bit of a letdown spot. It's, I mean, 3 days later, but you're finally back at home, right? Maybe some of those stressors and everything that was filling your blood kind of dies down and you kind of settle in. Well, here comes a Patriots team who has kept every game close. Their defense is playing up to par. And from the football end of things, Patriots are gaining over 170 yards on the ground per game. So, they're very good at ball control, right? Their defense is keeping them in games. And this is a big spread. So I agree with you. Plus 6.5 is the only way I can look here on the visiting team. And I'll just add this piece too. Aaron Rodgers, who played in a soft division for most of his career with the Green Bay Packers, finally in his first AFC East battle, I think he's going to learn pretty quickly that these are pretty tough games, Lou. And I expect the Patriots to bring it on Thursday night. Let me ask you about a game on Sunday that I find very interesting, especially because what you said last week is really hanging with me. You got to bet like you hate your money, right? And that's really sticking with me, Lou, because we look at this matchup in week 3 between the Denver Broncos visiting Tampa Bay. Now, you talk about a misleading result, right? Tampa Bay beat the Lions, but the Lions were moving up and down the field in week 2. The Lions more than doubled the total yardage of the Tampa Bay Bucks, but Tampa Bay nonetheless moves on to 2-0. Now they're at home, and they're 7-point favorites against the Denver Broncos. You can find some 6.5s out there, I think at a few books if you like Tampa's side, I guess. But it's really hard for me to look away from Denver in this spot, Lou, especially when you think about Sean Payton. He's used to facing these teams in the NFC South. Going to Tampa is not going to be intimidating for him. And again, a market inflation and overreaction perhaps, right? Before the season, Tampa Bay would never be 7-point favorites here against Denver. So as Denver hasn't showed us very much so far. Bo Nix making a lot of mistakes last week, but this is almost a must buy on the Denver Broncos for me. What say you, Lou?
Well, the parameters are fitting, the hate your money typology. So you had Tampa at 5.5 and 43.5 a week ago. So this game's seen a ton of movement. So we've seen a full point. Now Tampa 6.5, pressuring 7 and 39.5. Number is dropped. The totals drop like a hammer in the lake. Here's another one. Denver's getting 18% of the bets. So nobody's really looking at Denver. However, they're realizing 37% of the money. So very, very few bets are coming in on Denver, but they're big bets. And they're big bets, and they've been made before Tuesday of the week ahead. That tends to signify sharp money. And so my tactic would be to maybe just be patient here to see if I could get the 7, then jump. The other tactic, the under is 43% of the bets and 89% of the money. So that move from 43 to 39.5 has been bombed. There's heavy money in that direction. I would tend to think it's the correct side. However, at 39.5, I missed the party. So now I got to be either more aware next week when these totals start to move. And what we'll notice on these shows, I'll be talking more and more totals as we get into this season. They'll let you bet 20 or 30 grand on a side in an NFL game, but only 5 or 6 or 7 on an NFL total. That's why I'm going to start to be talking about totals a little bit more. So big movement on both of these, side and total, in this game.
Yeah, let me ask you something about what you just said about the bet percentages and where the money's going on these games. So is that part of your process every week, like something you consider when you see that sort of situation, right? Like nobody necessarily betting on the side that you like, but maybe big money at first going in that direction? Because I've heard both sides of that coin, right? Like, I mean, this is proprietary information to a degree, right? So there's no way that we can know across the board where every bet and all the money is going. But then there are some, Action Network, there are some sites out there in places that give you some of these bet percentages and where the money's going. So it sounds like it is part of your process.
Everything is part of, there's nothing that isn't part of my process, but there's also nothing that is the only part of my process.
Right.
I'm not a trend guy. I'm not a situation. I listen to it all and take it all in. I work at VSiN, and those that subscribe to VSiN can go and get the DraftKings betting splits as a part of their subscription. So I have access to that, and I have friends that are bookmakers that send me on a regular basis their percentages as well that I can shop across sports books. That's what, there's benefits to being an old saddle.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned VSiN. Yeah, if our friends listening get a chance to cross the Atlantic and go to Circus Sports, I highly recommend it. I'm not getting any money for saying that, but Circus Sports is a great time. I've been on VSiN many times. You can catch Lou over there as well. Okay, let's move on to Sunday Night Football. Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Atlanta. Kansas City being granted a nice little penalty at the end of that game there against the Bengals that put them in field goal position, and then the Chiefs pull it out. But that was a really tough game for them against Cincinnati, a game that Cincinnati certainly felt like they were going to win up until the very end. Atlanta was 4.5-point dogs at home. Now it's 3.5 at most books, coming off that Monday Night Football game. Kirk Cousins going right down the field there in the final minute and a half and leading his team to victory there for the Falcons. So for me, Lou, this is a game I'm probably just going to stay away from. When the numbers, like when the spread gets this low on a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, you naturally want to take the Chiefs, but this is a tricky spot. The Falcons are back at home. Now they have a win. They're feeling a little bit better at themselves, but it's an interconference game that the Chiefs, it's an easy game to kind of forget about. Kansas City has to go to LA next week to face the Chargers, which is probably going to be a more difficult matchup than they've had in the past. So the Chiefs at the Falcons, and this number is around 3.5 now in favor of the Chiefs.
Yeah, road dog, and you pretty much hit it on the head. The thing with the Chiefs Is the continuity created, or I should say the lack of continuity created by injuries? No Pacheco. Is that going to be Sam J. Perrine or Perrine that's going to step in? Do they sign Kareem Hunt? They got a rookie on the roster. That's going to surely affect their offense and how it works and how they function. Tends for me to think it's going to be a more conservative game. And the total says 47 and a half a week ago, 46 and a half now. I think that's reflective of the Pacheco loss. Here's a game that screams to me, stay away. Old saddles like me love the division dog, especially at home. If I'm getting points, there are just certain things I can hang my hat on. Kansas City, Atlanta, especially with Kansas City having a divisional game next week. I could see this being really tight, but I think it's a tougher spot for Atlanta off a high emotional Monday night win, short week, and they come back home.
Agree with you there. It sounds like a stay away for both of us. Let's go to Monday Night Football, where I feel bad for our audience in the UK because these games are going to be on 1 a.m. for you guys. So sorry, there's 2 games now on Monday night, and we'll start with the Jacksonville Jaguars visiting the Buffalo Bills. Man, not a lot to like about what Jacksonville is doing right now. Just a lot of mistakes, a lot of gaffes, especially in that second half. They're 5.5-point dogs on the road at Buffalo, but this certainly qualifies, Lou. Buffalo 2-0. Maybe got a little fortunate at the end of that game there. Tua getting injured on Thursday Night Football. 10 days of rest at home, but 2-0, whereas Jacksonville's 0-2. Very desperate at this point. Everybody questioning Doug Peterson and just the whole operation there, right? I personally hate a dead number like this, 5.5. But I would lean Jacksonville's side in an ultra desperate spot, especially because from a football perspective, everything kind of coming together here. Jacksonville has been pretty good against the run. I mean, we're only 2 weeks in, but we know Buffalo wants to run the ball. Jacksonville holding teams to 3.8 yards per rush, which is a top 10 mark. So that could be a good thing for their defense. Jacksonville Jaguars and Bills. Lou, what do you got for us?
Well, I don't want, I know we should feel somewhat bad for our English friends that have to stay up into the wee hours to watch these games, but they got good, really good beer and draft in England and all parts of Europe. So you stay up late with a couple of Cooper's Ales. I know that would get me to stay up and keep watching. As far as Jacksonville and Buffalo, a week ago, Buffalo 4.5, now 5.5. We watched Buffalo go to Miami, look good despite Miami injuries. There's general positivity on Buffalo and there's selling activity on Jacksonville. And so we got 2 varying ships going the opposite way. To me, the only way to really look at this is to see if you can get to the key number of 6
Right.
with Jacksonville and that makes them a whole lot more attractive to me. However, when we look at the look ahead line for the total, 47 a week ago, 45.5 now, and we have 32% of the bets. So 32% of the bets are betting that under, but 70% of the money's on the under. So this is a really large disparity, a small amount of wagers and a large amount of money that's moving that. And it hasn't moved so grotesquely that we are out of line right now. And to me, I make this number 44.5. It's currently 45.5. This to me triggers a buy action on the under 45.5 as it's currently priced.
I like that. That's not one I thought about, but I can absolutely see both teams just trying to play ball control, especially Buffalo. Maybe Josh Allen mistake or 2 is in the mix here that prevents them from scoring. So I like it, Lou. Looking at the under in Jacksonville, Buffalo from Lou Finicaro. Okay. The last Monday Night Football game just starts a little bit after the first one. Washington Commanders at Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals did it again, Lou. They managed to go 0-2 at the start of the season. Of course, very easily could have got that win last week, but it is what it is at Kansas City. It happens. I'm seeing a lot of the bets on Washington here so far, but you're actually seeing, there's a little bit of movement here, but it's staying over 7. I doubt this spread goes 7 or less. I don't see sharp money coming in on Washington. You tell me if you feel differently, Lou, but obviously an ultimate spot here, Cincinnati at home to get a big win. But Washington is also 0-2. And if I'm trying to talk myself into Washington, they have an LSU quarterback as well who maybe takes some pride in the fact that he's from LSU, like Burrow, and maybe there's a little competition there. I don't think I can talk myself into Washington, Lou. However, this is a pretty big spread, but Cincinnati looking to get their first win. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, you have to talk. You have to hate the money. It worked with Atlanta. I'm just saying, and this is a pig dog ugly game. And a week ago it was Cincinnati 6.5, so it took real money to get it to 7 and through. And so I say, be patient here. You're right; it isn't going down. It's only going to stay 7.5, maybe tick to 8. Currently, 62% of the bets and 79% of the money on Cincinnati. So this is just a situation where I acquiesce to the bookmaker. And by that, I mean they set the numbers. They're taking the risk. They're the ones that are going to get bombed and get their lips ripped off if Cincinnati just does a waltz and beats them. And so why should I have to think? I'm just going to sit in their lap and do what they got to do. And so it looks like to me, Washington plus 7.5 or better is probably going to be on my slate. Again, you ever seen a guy at the baseball plate, or for the European people, the hockey player, you can't hit a slap shot to go 100 miles an hour. If you're gripping that stick, you're so tight and biting on your mouthpiece, you got to be loosey-goosey, and you got to bet that way too.
I love it. Well, this is definitely a primo situation of got to hate your money betting on the Washington Commanders on Monday night against an 0-2 Bengals team. But I love the gusto, Lou. And I will say, the Bengals make a really good teaser leg, I think, at least, right? I mean, you're going through a lot of key numbers there. You go 7.5 down to 1.5 now. That's obviously much more comfortable. And maybe you pair that with a team like the Chargers, who are underdogs of 1.5 against Pittsburgh. Should be a very low scoring game there. You got to like what you saw so far from LA. Well, that's all we have for you today. Another breakdown of these week 3 nightly games and a few other thoughts in there as well. I love hearing Lou's philosophies. I'm learning more and more every single week, Lou, so it's great to be here with you. For Lou, for myself, follow me at Farley Bets, follow Lou at Gamblou, and listen to us again next week here at sportsbet.io. Good luck this week on your bets.